Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to take an opportunity to salute and thank and commend my colleagues who are departing. Senator Kirk, my colleague from Illinois, has just finished his remarks. Mark and I had the opportunity and the privilege to work on many things together. He is a Navy commander. He never lets me forget that. He always calls me Major, and I always call him Commander. But he served the state of Illinois with great integrity, great energy, and great spirit. And we thank you for that, Mark, very, very much. And thank you for the service to the nation in the uniform of the United States Navy. Thank you. We also have colleagues departing, Senator Ayotte of New Hampshire, Senator Boxer of California, Senator Coates of Indiana, as I mentioned, Senator Kirk of Illinois, Senator Mikulski of Maryland, Senator Reid of Nevada, and Senator Vitter of Louisiana. Each has brought passion in their work to best serve their constituents. And the institution of the Senate and the nation are better for the service. I am better for knowing them and working with them and having the opportunity to share with them. And I want to thank them for their service. Let me just mention a few words with respect to all of these distinguished senators. Kelly Ayotte and I were together for many years on the Armed Services Committee. What she brought was an unparalleled commitment and passion to the men and women who wear the uniform of the United States. She wanted them to have a quality of life which reflects their service, their sacrifice. She wanted them to have the training and the equipment that would protect them as they engage our foes. And she wanted to make sure they knew that we were always conscious of their sacrifice and service. She did this in so many different ways, and she did it so well. And she was particularly committed to making sure that the A-10 aircraft remained in our inventory. And as someone who is a younger person, was an infantry officer, I appreciated having seen in training how effective that system is to protect our forces on the ground. And her efforts were unstinting to make sure that our forces were fully protected. And again, just one example of her commitment. Barbara Boxer and I, we had the privilege to serve both in the House and the Senate together. My first term in the House of Representatives was Barbara's last term in the House before she was elected to the Senate. An extraordinary, tenacious fighter, remarkably so. And she has fought for women's rights. She's fought for the rights of families, for the people who needed economic assistance, people who needed a chance, because she realized that the essence of America is opportunity. Opportunity for all, not just for those who are privileged or who have the benefit of wealth or power, but for all. And she's done this extraordinarily well. A great deal of her energy was directed to environmental protection because that's something that benefits all of us. That's something that is really the biggest legacy we will give to the next generation and the next generation. No one has more fiercely defended the environment, not just for a narrow interest, not just for a temporary expedient, but for long-term health and welfare of the American people. Dan Coates and I served together, and this goes back to both his tenures in the United States Senate. Dan and I served in the Armed Services and the Health Committee. He was a remarkable member. He continues to be a remarkable member. He left us for a while to serve as ambassador to Germany. Once again, no surprise, distinguished himself with his thoughtful support of American policy, with his international approach to issues of concern, with the ability to bring people together, not just colleagues in the Senate, but also international colleagues. When he returned, I was very, very grateful for his help. Senator Dean Hell and I were working very hard together on a bipartisan basis to help unemployment insurance extension, and Dan joined us in that effort, and I thank him for that. It just reflects the huge range of talent and interests that he has, and also ultimately his commitment to the men and women of Indiana, particularly the working men and women of Indiana. Mark Kirk, I've mentioned. I had the privilege and the opportunity and the pleasure, really, of being able to salute him as he was here. Again, we will always greet each other as Major Reid and Commander Kirk, and I see deep symbolism and deep affection and regard in that exchange. And I wish him well as he goes forth. David Vitter and I served together on the Armed Service Committee, and we continue to serve together on the Banking Committee. And as a senior member of the Environment and Public Works Committee, he has been very critical in ensuring that we continue our commitment to infrastructure. That is a word now that's getting a lot of attention. But years ago, David was interested in that, not only just interested, but instrumental in making sure we did our best to keep up with infrastructure so that we could have a productive America, so that people could enjoy the benefits, and that we could be competitive in a global economy. And he has done a great deal. One area where we've also shared our interest is his Homeowner Flood Insurance Affordability Act, which became law in 2014. Again, critical not just to Louisiana, but to every coastal state, including Rhode Island. And his energy and his commitment and his dedication made it a success. So I thank him for that, and I wish him well as he goes forward. Barbara Mikulski, what an extraordinary individual. She is a pioneer, the first Democratic woman senator elected in her own right, the longest-serving woman in the history of the United States Congress. Barbara Mikulski and history are one and the same. She has made it. She came from very modest roots in Baltimore. She talked yesterday on the floor about her father and mother running a small grocery store in her neighborhood. She took that sense of community, that sense of dedication to others, selfless service to others. As she said, she was inspired by the nuns that taught her, and that inspiration was extraordinary and fully realized in her life. And so there's a lot of Sisters of Mercies and Sisters of Notre Dame that are sitting back today and thinking, I knew that young lady had it in her. She certainly did. She's led us on the Appropriations Committee, the first woman to chair the committee. And she has done so much to assist me in issues that are so close to the Rhode Island situation. Lead poisoning. I must say she and Kit Bond, one of her colleagues, were just extraordinary in recognizing the problems of lead exposure in children and providing real resources. I thank her for that. She's assisted the fishermen in my communities in Rhode Island with real assistance and real aid. She's done it over and over again. And she has given me profound advice, counsel, and kindness. She said yes on the floor that the best ship in the world is friendship. I agree. But ultimately, the measure of our service and of our days is measured in kindness. And I must say that by that measure, she is a very towering figure in the United States Senate and in the history of the United States, and I thank her. And finally, our leader, Harry Reid. Much has been said about Harry today. I will not go over the extraordinary tale of a young man from Searchlight, Nevada. He's been many things: a boxer, a Capitol police officer while he was working his way through law school. He has always been a fighter, and a fighter for those that need help. Not for the powerful, but for the powerful, less people without power. For those without voice, he has given them a voice. And I've always appreciated his counsel, his guidance, and his support that was important to my constituents, but important to all Americans. And we've worked on numerous pieces of legislation together to address the housing crisis, to extend unemployment insurance, to make college more affordable, to improve mental health services. As he said today in his remarks, one of the achievements is to be able to give health care protection to millions of Americans that didn't have it. And if it's taken away, will not have it. And he did that because it was the right thing to do, but because he understood from his own personal experience how traumatizing and how debilitating and how ultimately destructive the lack of access to good health care, both physical health care and mental health care, is to America. And also how it does make us productive. Simply having health care is not just a good thing to do, it's a smart economic thing to do. And he led that fight for us. It has been an honor to serve alongside Harry Reid and to see this extraordinary legislator work his way quietly sometimes, many times, but persistently. There's no one more persistent than Harry. And his steady, unselfish leadership will continue to guide us, and his example will continue to guide us. Mr. President, I've been very fortunate. I've had the privilege to serve with these ladies and gentlemen, and I want to thank them for the service. I was also very privileged to serve with the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. The Vice President was here yesterday. I was here listening to the comments, and I must add, if I could, some words of my own. He is a true statesman. I had the privilege of serving with him for over a decade. We traveled together to places like Afghanistan and Iraq, and I'm honored to have gotten to know him and his wonderful family. And even though he's Vice President of the United States of America, the second highest office in the land, I know the titles that he's proudest of: father, grandfather, husband, brother, and after that, senator. And, Mr. Chairman, a tribute to Joe Biden really has to extend to some others. And one person I want to single out is his sister, Valerie Biden Owens. Val is not only his closest advisor, but the architect of his first campaign and everyone thereafter. And at a time when very few women were running U.S. Senate campaigns, Val was responsible for electing a 29-year-old newcomer. And when tragedy struck, she was the one who helped bring him back, who enabled him to serve the people of Delaware and ultimately the people of the United States and of the world. She's a brilliant strategist who has gone on to advise many office holders. And so we thank her for her lasting contributions, and I wanted to make sure she got some credit. Of course, both the Vice President and Val are quick to note the real credit comes from their parents. Catherine Jean Finnegan Biden, his mom, and his late great father, Joe Sr. The Vice President and I would often joke, and it's not a joke, it's actually a truth, that all we aspire to be is half as good as his mom or dad. That's an Irish aspiration. And you know, Joe's made it. I'm still working on it, but he's at least half as good as these extraordinary people. If you've spent any time with the Vice President, you know that he's famous for quoting his father and his mother and the wisdom they imparted to all their children, to Joe, to Val, to Jimmy and Frank. And I think you've heard that Senator Biden, Chairman Biden, Vice President Biden said, listen, I give you my word as a Biden, and you know you could take that one to the bank. He meant it. And once you hear that, without hesitation, you know he was there with you and would not equivocate, would not deviate, would be with you. I had the privilege not only of working with Senator Biden, but I also had the privilege of working with a young captain in the United States Army, at least briefly, as we visited him. And that was Captain Bo Biden of the Delaware National Guard. Bo Biden didn't have to join the National Guard, didn't have to volunteer for Iraq, but he felt that it was his duty and his obligation. And when we were together with him in Iraq, you saw someone who personifies the very best of this nation. A soldier, someone conscientious, someone who would give his all, give his life for others, and particularly give every ounce of energy and service to this great nation. Anyone who met Bo knew he was a Biden. He didn't have to say it. He looked like his dad, but more importantly, he acted like his dad. Strong, tough, proud, dedicated, committed to helping others, particularly those who needed a chance, who needed a hand up, a passion for social justice, compassion, and again, that element of kindness. And the sum of his days, of Bo's days, he certainly surpassed that test of kindness and of decency and compassion. Now, the Biden family has known a great deal of tragedy, more than most families, but they've stuck together, and they've shared both moments of triumph and moments of profound sadness. And together, they have shaped history, made this a better nation and a better world. And all of us who've had the privilege of knowing Joe and Jill and the family, better people. Mr. Chairman, let me thank you, Mr. Vice President, Senator Joe, thank you. With that, Mr. President, I would yield the floor, and I would note the absence of quorum.